Hi everyone, welcome back to the Navigant Credit Union Broadcast Center. I'm GoLocal News Editor Kate Nagel. I'd like to welcome now my next guest, a familiar face, Keith Oliveira, the Executive Director of the League of Charter Schools here in Rhode Island. Thank you for coming in today.
Always a pleasure to be here, Kate.
Because it's a busy week for the League. Tomorrow is the Charter Public Schools Fair at Times Square STEM Academy. And wanted you to come in to let folks in the community know, again, about this fair, sort of open house, if you will, for potentially interested students and families.
Well, I appreciate the opportunity. The Charter School Fair is one of our signature events for the League, and what it is, it's an opportunity for all Rhode Island families to come and learn about our charter schools, what they have to offer. It's a prelude to the upcoming charter school lottery. And so you can come and meet representatives of each of our 19 members of the League of Charter Schools, hear about their schools. If you're interested, you can apply online for the upcoming lottery. And it's just a way to come and for the community to come out, learn about our charter schools. And it's for those families that are really interested in high quality public education options. And this is the event to learn more about our schools.
Do you find when parents and families come to these events, do they know specifically the schools that they're most interested in, or are they generally looking to get more information about just the participating schools in general?
I think it's one-stop shopping for them, and so they know what grade level that their students are in, so they'll come in and they'll see what schools actually serve those grades.
That's the starting point.
Yeah, and that's the starting point, and then they make their decisions from there. But it's generally they start with where the kid is, and they'll come and see what schools have to serve that age group.
And how's the format? As you said, the representatives of some of the schools are there. Is it just conversational, just sort of maybe waiting a turn or two if they're talking with parents who might be interested from a school, but just having that opportunity to have the representatives from the school to answer questions?
Yes, an opportunity just to engage with folks from the school. And so each school has their own table set up, and families can just circle the room. We've got like 19 schools. It's in the gymnasium of Times Square Academy, which is a big gymnasium. And so families, they'll get a sheet that lists all of the schools, the grade levels that they serve, where they're located, and then they can take that sheet and go to each of the tables, and there's a representative from each school at the table that has materials about this school. But they also have, some of them will actually have their laptops because they have online admissions or online applications. And so if a family is interested, they can go right there and apply to the school right there, and then their application will be submitted for the lottery.
So before that leads me up to my next question with the lottery. What's the turnout generally like at these events? I'm sure you're there and talking with parents there as well. Do you get a big turnout?
Last year it was hugely successful. We got a big turnout. We had over 600 folks who signed in on a sign-in sheet. So yeah, it was a huge turnout. It speaks to the demand and the interest for in charter schools, and so we expect that there'll be equally a significant turnout tomorrow.
So that leads, of course, to the next question. Let's go back to last year's lottery, because some families might know, the public might know as well, the demand far outweighs the ability to accommodate the families that are looking for a public school option.
The demand is so huge in Rhode Island, and there's such limited space in our charter schools. Last year when we did our charter school, I think I may have been with you just after our lottery last year, we had, across all of our charter schools, 19 members of the League of Charter Schools, not including the mayoral academies, but just the League. We had over 12,000 applications for admissions for just over 1,000 seats. And so that just speaks to the demand for charter schools, and there's more seats to be made available, which is what we advocate for.
So you wear many hats as executive director, between talking to the families, dealing with the schools, and also dealing with the General Assembly. Of course, there are policy issues as well associated with the League and the needs, and sort of always that push and pull of the existing capacity and, as you said, the potentially need for more. Tell us a little bit about maybe what the 2019 General Assembly session looks like for the League as you're up there talking with lawmakers about the needs of the public charter schools.
Well, I'm hoping that it won't be as tumultuous as in the past several years. There's always this tension between, how do we provide more school choice and opportunities within the public school sector without having a significant fiscal impact on the existing traditional districts. So that's always that tension, and what is the right balance of growth, of choice and opportunity without significantly doing harm to the public school districts, which I understand. As it being a former president of a Providence School Board, I also understand that that tension, and so we always try to navigate the politics of that at the General Assembly.
There's always funding debates, of course, that go on, but let's talk a little bit about the potential for expansion, because again, as there's as mandated and by the state, I mean, there's a finite amount of expansion possibilities possible. Yeah. Talk with us a little bit about what that state of the state is right now, with what the future could hold for public school opportunities.
I think there's room for growth, particularly in our urban communities with, like Providence, Northern Rhode Island, and Woonsocket, where there is still some capacity to grow charter school seats, and for the districts to be able to absorb those loss of students and resources. So there's one school that's already in the pipeline that's scheduled to open next year, the Wangari Maathai Charter School. It's going to be a middle school over in the south side or the west end of Providence. But then there are, and I was just speaking with folks at RIDE, there's about another 4 or 5 applications that are about to be applied for to get into the queue.
Into the queue itself.
Yeah. And so we're seeing that there's some increase in the desire to start new charter schools as well, which is a good thing.
So I want to talk a little bit about what we reported and other folks had as well, the recent RICAS test scores. Yeah. Like every place across the state, there was a wide spectrum of performance, especially amongst the public charter schools, some high-performing ones, some ones in need of some remediation. Let's talk a little bit about when those test scores came out and the league, and even on a school-by-school basis, how they absorbed that information and said, okay, what do we need to do from here?
Well, in terms of the school performance, obviously it ran the spectrum. We had some very, very high-performing schools, particularly ones down in South County. And then we have some that need some work. And most of our schools fell somewhere in the middle. And I think that's what we see around the state. Obviously, no one was satisfied with the outcomes of this year's assessment. I think that's in large part to the fact that we've changed tests so much over the last. I think we had 3 tests
in like 5 years. Yeah.
And so the way it works is, schools, how they develop their academic programs is you'll have a curriculum that's aligned to a certain set of standards, and your assessment assesses how you're performing towards those standards. Well, when you have a different test 3 out of 5 years, how do you plan the longitudinal consistency of your academic program when you're being set in a different way? I think what we need as a state now is just some consistency and continuity and commitment to a long-term system. I think schools can then adjust to that system. Yeah.
There have been a number of discussions around that. We've talked with Neil Steinberg at the Rhode Island Foundation as he's convened a table of stakeholders to look at that long-term approach. Representative Joe McNamara introducing legislation concerning, again, those standards and how they're applied throughout the state as well. Another thing that Representative McNamara was looking at attendance. Let's talk a little bit about the aspects of the charter schools beyond just the test scores and really what those metrics are that the schools are looking at, because there's plenty outside of the test as well as looking to prepare kids for the
Well, I think you raise a good point, because the state, in addition to having a new assessment, we have a new accountability system, and that's how we measure the performance and quality of the schools themselves beyond just absolute proficiency on the standardized assessment. But this new ESSA system, they call it, also looks at not just absolute proficiency, but growth. And not just growth, but so the growth of not just your overall student population, but they also look at subgroups. So you look at your ELL learners, you look at how your low-income students are performing. And so you're not just looking at the school's performance or the general student body, but you're looking at the subgroups. And so, but they also look at metrics on climate and culture. And so they look at what is the teacher absentee rate, what is the student absentee rate, what is the discipline records and student suspensions. And so they look at this new accountability system, evaluates the school beyond just your state assessments, but they look at the overall health and performance of the school. And I think that's a far better way of measuring the quality of a school.
So as we're here in the beginning of 2019, Keith, give us maybe a little bit of the broad overview of kind of what are the biggest challenges facing public charters at this time, and then we'll go into where the opportunities are.
Well, the challenges are just as any school districts have, just public schools in general, is how do you design schools that meet the needs of actually who the students actually are. I think the model of charter schools allows for the flexibility to be able to actually design around student need. So you can know who your kids are, you can use the student data to know what their strengths and weaknesses are, and you can design your academic programs and allocate your resources according to that need. And so that's always the challenge. And what I would, one of the things that I've been advocating, because I'm on that Rhode Island Foundation work group, and one of the things that I've been advocating for, even for the larger districts, is that district schools have similar flexibilities at the building level to where the decisions around teaching and learning are actually made where the students actually are in the building. And so you push that some of that decision making to the building level. I think that's how you become much more personalized in meeting student need. And I think that's the way that we should be moving.
So before we let you go, Keith, and we'll provide again that information for the public schools, the Charter Public Schools Fair taking place tomorrow at Times Squared. Let's talk. We've talked about the lottery, the outstanding need. Obviously, if you're serving 1,000 family students out of 12,000 that we're looking for it. Yeah. There's also, again, for those who don't get that coveted spot in a school, you still talk with those families and say, well, if you're a child's of an age of which there are potentials to try again, but to be an active participant, especially at the public policy level, to say, we're looking for these. So, if you get that rejection letter, say there are avenues to advocate and say that parents and families are looking for that opportunity.
The students that do not get into a school via the lottery, they're placed on a waiting list, and we maintain the contact information of the families of the students who are on that waiting list. And so when we're trying to mobilize some support for the expansion of charter school opportunities and seats, they would be the beneficiaries, and so we try to mobilize those folks to come out and support our advocacy for expansion.
Well, anything else you want to let folks know? Well, we have you here in studio. Again, we'll provide the nuts and bolts for the fair tomorrow, but just wanted to get the word out if families hadn't heard about this taking place tomorrow. Well,
like I said, I really appreciate the opportunity. This is, we consider this to be, like I said, our signature event. It's an opportunity for families from all over Rhode Island because our schools are all across the state. And just to come here and learn about charter schools, learn about what we have to offer, learn about how our schools are designed to serve your students' needs. And if you're interested, you can actually apply online and get your name into the lottery.
Put it in the queue. Yeah. Well, Keith Oliveira, Executive Director of the Rhode Island League of Charter Schools, I appreciate your taking the time to come into the studio here.
Always a pleasure.
We've had a full afternoon, especially with Laura Afonso at the 3 o'clock hour. If you missed it, be sure to check her out. And of course, I'd like to thank Jeff Sullivan, Director of the Shadow Box at the Barker Playhouse here in Providence, opening this weekend. And of course, thank Keith Oliveira. We'll be back tomorrow with Politics and Lifestyle with Chelsea Gay on Thursday, both at the Navigant Credit Union Broadcast Center and up at the Rhode Island State House. But in the meantime, check out GoLocalProv.com online and find us on Facebook. And we'll see you back tomorrow. I'm GoLocal News Editor Kate.